So welcome to Tech Thursday. Basically, Tech Thursday is our, weekly, bi-weekly review of everything that's going on at Infrascale. So I am your host. I am the Chief Solutions Architect here at Infrascale. Today we're going to be covering a couple of things. One, we're going to have Alexey T, our VP of Product on to talk about what's going on with product, a little bit of his background, a little bit about what's changing and where we're going. Also to talk about his favorite features of the 8.0 update. We're going to talk about an update to ICAB, or Infrascale Cloud Application Backup, and we'll talk about what's changing there, and we'll do a little demo on how you can see how much of that you're using, if that is one of our solutions that you happen to be using. And then we're going to jump into the 8.0 update. We've got tons of things in there to look at. We're going to look at how do you get it, what's in the update, and some of the cool, more techie tips and tricks around using the update. And like always, we're going to answer your questions here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump over and see how Alexey's doing. Hey, Alexey, how are you doing today?
Hey, Chris. Fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time since I got to see you in person. Hopefully you'll make the trip back to Orlando soon.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since I've seen a lot of my coworkers that are local here in person too.
Yeah,
Tough
we actually went into the office for the first time last week and went out to lunch. It was one of our coworkers' birthdays, so that was kind of nice. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is you do, how long you've been here, how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I'm with the company for already almost 10 years, and I've started as an architect and was in different positions here before I got to the product, seeing the business and our customers from different angles, trying to understand the market and the technology and everything. My background is, before Infrascale, was mostly software solutions for telecoms and government sectors. But I've actually started as an IT technician at the times when we had to move companies from Cox to Twisted Pair and all the fun stuff, which a lot of our partners probably know and remember about. Good old times. So here at Infrascale, my team is one of the smallest but most impactful in the company, because we are the guys who get all the input, and we have to make decisions and make choices. What is that we are going to implement? What is that we are going to work on in the future? So the team is product owners, UI UX designers, and some tech writing and copywriting professionals. And my closest peer is our VP of Product Marketing Management, which you may meet at one of the next weeks. And he's the guy who creates marketing materials for our partners, MSPs, and as well for customers of our partners, to explain them the value of the product, what are the benefits for their businesses and for their customers.
So you think it up and then he figures out how to sell it best.
Well, and it's a byway road, because we have something and there is something that market needs, so we need to find this perfect match of what we have and what does market need, and where to adjust the product and where to adjust what we offer our customers.
All right, so I got a question. I hate to put you on the spot, but if we need to come back to it, we can. But someone asked if there's like a way that they can get input to you. Like, how do they volunteer to give you input on what they think we're lacking in a product or a feature improvement or something?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are two ways. One way, if you're working with our support, it can go through support process as a suggestion or recommendation. It's sort of a longer way. Usually through this channel, you go if there is something smallish, like small improvement. But also we can schedule one-on-one interview, and we do this with one of the product owners, or with me, or with our product marketing manager. To do that, we have a calendar, open calendar, to schedule such interviews. So get in touch with Chris after the meeting, and I'll make sure he gets you a link.
Okay, so we got two routes, right? We've got sales, so you can either reach out to me or any of your reps that you work with, and we can get you hooked up with Alexey T and his team to talk about that. Or if it goes through support, it can get escalated that route also.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. So what would be your favorite thing that you guys have in the 8.0 release?
It's the most obvious one, actually. It's the UI refresh. And I love it because this is the first thing I wanted to do after I got involved with the product like 5 years ago, or even 6 years ago. Like, this looks a little bit dated. Let's put a new face on it. But when I started to get deeper in the product and user needs, interviewing customers, looking at the competition, UI always seemed to be something that's not as important, because, well, you can get job done, like, and that's enough. And existing customers were like, well, you know, it gets job done. So if you make me choose between supporting new version of VMware or better UI, I of course would choose new version of VMware. But at some point we decided that it's like,
it's time.
no longer works.
It's time to update that interface.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you know, a Geo Metro can get me from point A to point B, but I'd much rather be in a Ferrari. So I definitely agree. It's nice to have a better user interface that, you know, it's just cleaner. And it's definitely one of those things I've heard from customers before is, hey, this kind of looks a little dated. Now, I actually come from a different vendor that I think their interface was way worse. So when I came here, it was refreshing, but now it's even nicer that 2 years after I've been here, the interface gets uplifted to the beautiful new interface, which we're going to jump in and check out. So with that being said, before we get to the 8.0 update, I do have one other thing that I want to talk about, and that is Infrascale's cloud application backup. We have made some changes to the way that we're offering this product. So definitely one of those things that I want to bring up while we're all here. Right now we're changing it from where you used to buy licenses, and those licenses were good for, say, like a year, and you know, or 3 years, however you wanted to buy them. Now we're going to a consumption-based pay-as-you-go model. So that's going to change things a lot about how you're going to get billed, and it's going to make it a lot more flexible and easier for you to consume. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the dashboard and take a look at how you can see how much of that solution that you might be consuming. So here we are in the dashboard. We'll go ahead and take a look. Manage Cloud Application Backup. And here we can see how much we're actually consuming. So of Exchange, I'm using 5 out of 5 accounts that I have. In Teams, I'm using this much space. In Box, OneDrive, SharePoint. So you can not only see all of the different things that you're protecting, but you can see how much of that you're consuming. So it's going to make it very easy for you to come in here and be able to predict what that bill is going to look like. Now, if we hit Manage over here, we can come in and we can actually see all the different things that in Cloud Backup we can protect. So if I hit over here to Configure, again, we've got 365, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, G Suite, Google Drive, Salesforce, Box, Dropbox. And again, if there's something not in here that you want to see, let us know. You know, we're always looking for recommendations of what's the next thing that we should be adding in here. Now, if anyone has any questions around cloud application backup, you want to see a demo, you want to find out more about what's changing, always reach out to me, reach out to your sales reps. They're going to be able to help you with all of that information. Now let's jump into the update, the main point for today's call, and something I'm super excited about. I started here at 6.0 or 6. Something, and in the 2 years I've been here, we've gotten to 8, and definitely there's a lot of changes. But the most important thing is, well, how do I get this update? How complicated is it to install this update? Let's jump back over and take a look. So here we can see if we go under Manage, DR Sites and Appliances, here we can see what firmware version we're running, and we've got a exclamation point here. It says, hey, this is running 7.1, and 8.0 is available. So one option we have is we can, over here, tell it that we want to update the primary appliance. Now what's great about if we have this set up in replication is if we update the primary appliance, it'll also update the secondary appliance. So you don't have to worry about going in and doing that. And one of the stories I like to tell is I was actually in Boston, heading to the airport in my rental car, and I got a call from the marketing department, and they're like, hey, are you going to be able to do an 8 a.m. demo of the new firmware tomorrow? And I was getting on a flight at like 9 p.m., and I was like, sure, why not? So once I got on my flight, we got up in the air, I jumped on my iPhone, and was able to update a couple of my appliances to the latest firmware. So I was able to do that demo in the morning. So realistically, managing these, you can do it from an iPhone 30,000 feet in the air. So it's definitely one of those things. It's easy to keep updated. On the left here, we've got a bunch of checkboxes where you can go through, and you can actually do a mass action and update multiple at once. Now, one tip or trick I would like to mention is if we come over here and we look at one of my machines, I have Thor, which will be the one I'll be using for most of the demos today. When we log into this box, currently on our dashboard, we now show that you have running VMs. Previously, you'd have to come into boot and active and see that you had a running VM. That's the one thing that will prevent an appliance from updating to the latest firmware. You need to log in and just make sure that you've got all the VMs that are running on top of it shut down, right? Because we're not going to, we don't know if that's in production, so we're not going to shut it down and kind of take over your environment. So you want to make sure that not only on the local, but also in the cloud, all of those virtual machines are shut down. Now, if you log into the appliance, you do have the option to come in here and go firmware and tell it to do an update if there was one, but this one's already running on 8.0. And if you click to update here, it is going to warn you, hey, there's something running. Do you want me to shut it off and do the update or not? But if you do it from the dashboard, it's just going to not work. It's going to give you an error that it couldn't update. So definitely, log into the local, log into the cloud, make sure nothing's booted. The other thing you want to take a look at is automatically update the Windows backup agent. We're going to get a lot more information about the Windows backup agent here later, because that's another major change in 8.0. Now, if you check this box, it'll automatically push the update out. That's awesome. It's a lot less work. The only drawback to that is if that Windows machine is missing certain libraries, it might cause it to reboot. Now, that is something we're looking at, changing, but right now, the way that it currently works, it might cause it to reboot. So the default is to have it unchecked, and that's kind of where I've got it. Because if you log into the machine, you can always hit the appliance, come down here to downloads, download that agent, and then install that agent. And if you install the agent, then it's going to pop up the, would you like to reboot now or later? You can say later, and then the next time it reboots, everything's going to be good. Now, you don't have to update everything. You will just get a little exclamation point on your agent if you're running the old version that says, hey, you're running the old version of this client. You probably want to upgrade to the newest version. Now, hopefully something you guys have noticed is, Look at the interface. It's vastly different than before. It's a lot cleaner looking. It's a lot nicer. It's more responsive. There's little animations of things zooming in and out. There's a bunch of other things we're going to go over that have been added. So it's not just purely a graphical upgrade. There's actually some functionality that's been updated or changed. Now, one of the big changes is actually in this notices window. There's now a lot more things we'll put in here to notify you of. Right now we can see it says, hey, we've got a VM running on this machine. So that's going to take up some of the resources. It might slow down performance a little. So if you don't really need to be running that VM, you might want to shut it down. This is also where you would get a notice if there's a new firmware on the available for the appliance. You'd also get a notice if the credentials to the dashboard have changed. That's going to come in here. So, you're going to get a lot of information out of this notices panel, where before there were like 1 or 2 notices. Now there's a whole bunch out there that are available that'll pop in here and let you know everything that's going on. Now, as I had said before, one of the major changes that we have is around the agent that we use for physical boxes or boxes that have an agent on it. So you might install an agent on a virtual machine if you wanted to do, say, a file and folder backup, or you wanted to do a SQL database backup, or a Microsoft Exchange backup, and grab that at the granular level as opposed to grabbing it at the full machine level. The old standard is now called Legacy, and that's the old agent that we used to use. And now we've switched over to using the Infrascale disaster recovery agent that we wrote in-house. It's significantly faster than the old agent, so that is why it has now become the standard agent. And by default, when you deploy a new client, it's going to go to the standard agent. So again, a lot of the issues that we had, problems we ran into, all those have been eliminated. It's a lot faster. But again, this is primarily used for physical machines or virtual machines that are running an application that you might want to protect. Now, we have also added in better support for Windows Server 2019. And we've updated the way that our RAID status works, so the updates are going to be automatic and more frequent. Now, a couple things that have changed is we have changed what we support. So again, you could run the old agent and still have support for older versions of things. However, we have dropped support for all the way back to Windows 7 SP1 and Windows Server 2008 R2 SP1. So if you're running Windows XP or you're running Server 2000 or something really old, you're going to have to use one of the old agents with the new firmware. And again, we do support one revision back for doing that. So you do have the ability to do that. But going forward, basically, if Microsoft has fully dropped support for it, we're going to drop support for it. We can't build agents and fixes if we can't get support from Microsoft on those things. Now, we have updated the agent. I don't know if you guys have ran into an issue previously where you went to go deploy the agent and maybe not all the components were already there, and it led to a little bit of confusion. Now we've fixed that, so we're going to go ahead and include all the components for our Infrascale engine and make sure that we push those out all the time. Another thing that's really nice that we've added here is, say we come in here and we want to do browse and restore. So I want to recover some stuff. I'm going to grab the last backup and all the other backups. Now we have the ability to go in here and say, all right, well, say I want to download everything in the administrator folder. If I can just click on this button, I'm just going to go ahead and download everything in that folder. Where previously you could do that for individual files, now we can actually go out and grab a full folder It's going to compress it, zip it, and everything for us. So that's really convenient. Another thing that we've added is the ability to support NVMe drives for bare metal restores. So that's definitely a trend that we've seen going on out there. As technology gets faster, storage gets faster, everyone wants to move to the latest and greatest technology. And NVMe is kind of that super fast technology that we've got out there until we start having those RAM disks come back again. So we now support NVMe drives for being able to do those backups. Another thing around manual or around machines that have the DR agent is if we come in here and we say we want to do a manual backup, the default now is to do a backup DR image. That's what 99% of our customers probably use. Very few are actually using the file and folder backup. Only in special application use cases does it really make sense. So it's great that we've moved the default over to what customers are actually using. So as you can see, a lot of the updates in this are around what MSPs and customers have been asking us to modify. So we're making it easier. We're making it so the defaults are much cleaner. And, when you go in and you set things up, it's just going to work as expected. Another thing that we've modified here is the ability to do boot verification. You used to turn it off and on for the entire appliance. So that meant no matter what, everything's getting boot verified. And sometimes maybe a customer's running an old Windows 2000 server in VMware. Well, that's going to fail boot verification. We never supported it. So it's always going to fail. It's always going to throw an error. And a lot of customers, whenever there's an error or a red checkbox, they get upset. So what we've now done is we've enabled it so that boot verification is actually set at the individual client level. So here we can see my Hyper-V 2016 server. I have enabled for boot verification. I can configure how long I want it to wait to verify that boot. So for certain things, like say a domain controller. A domain controller is going to take a lot longer to boot up without networking, because again, boot verifications are without networking, than a Windows 10 desktop server. So you can configure this per client, how long you want to wait for that machine to come online. Another thing that's important, and this is something our competitors don't do, is you can go in and individually configure this one. So, all right, this is a Hyper-V server. It's going to need more RAM than this. So I can say, all right, well, whenever it boots, it gets 16 gigs of RAM. I'm going to give it 4 processors. So you can configure those defaults, and when you hit save here, it's going to actually use those defaults when it boots up and does that boot verification. Now, a couple of the things I'm going to go over now are so visible as far as just super useful. When we go out and we send out email and notification alerts, we're going to include the UUID, which is basically the serial number for the appliances, in those. So when you reach out to support, that's the first thing they ask for. So it makes sense that when you get an error or an alert, we throw that in there so you have the answer to that question. I always hate it when I call in to like the cable company and they're like, oh, what's your PIN number? It's on your bill. And I got to go run around and try and find my bill to figure that out. So we've solved that for you, and we've gone ahead and just include that in there. This next one is one that I know has frustrated me, and I'm sure some of you. If you delete a client from the appliance, now it removes it from monitoring in the dashboard. So you'll stop getting those errors for clients that were deleted saying, hey, this machine hasn't backed up in 3 or 7 days. Yeah, I deleted it. So now we're actually following through all the way to the dashboard and making sure that those alerts are turned off. Again, a lot of this is, I've heard it referred to as like a parking lot release, where there's not a ton of new features. There's a good amount of new features, but there's a lot of cleaning up of false alerts, better interface, all that kind of stuff, better default options that are going to lead for a more successful experience with using the product. We've also changed it now so that if you set it up to use a proxy, it's going to use that proxy to communicate with the dashboard. For more secure environments, It's going to give us that ability to make sure that we're still updating that dashboard with all the information that we need to. This one I like also. So this is another one that would frustrate me. If a job fails, but it's set up to retry, it would alert it as a failed job. Well, now it's not going to give you that failure until all of the retries are done, and we know for a fact that, well, we just can't talk to that client, we can't back it up, so it's going to wait for that to happen. Now, we did make some changes here in VMware. We did make it so that CBT is now automatically enabled for doing backups. So we're going to use VMware's change log tracking. So that adds to the efficiency of being able to back things up. And the last feature I want to talk about, this is another one around the setup of the appliance, is now if the appliance can't get to the internet, when you start the Quick Start wizard to configure the appliance, it's going to give you the network configuration stuff first. So where that might be useful, I'm starting to see this a lot more as we're deploying these. A lot of people have DHCP blocked to the internet. So when you install the appliance at first and hook it up to the network, it's going to pull a DHCP address. But if that's blocked from going outbound, well, it's not going to be able to talk to our license server, our dashboard, and register the appliance. So now it'll come up and give you that option to put in the static IP information and configure that appliance. And now we'll jump to the last section that we've got, tips and tricks. So this is going to be for the, we'll say, more advanced users that are out there. Now, one thing that has always been kind of frustrating is, not that in any way I'm saying working with our support is frustrating, but generating a ticket, you've got to go on the appliance, find some information, and then reach out to support, whether it's chat at infrascale.com/support, or it's emailing in a ticket at the same location, or it's calling the 1-800 number for support. But there's still a little disconnect there. Now, what I like is in this particular one, we come over here to support, and we scroll down, we can say, oh, let's go ahead and open a ticket from here. I have an issue booting a VM. I can put in my email address. I can put in, all right, I'm Chris Bain. We'll put in my phone number here. And then Windows 2019 will not boot. And then we just hit submit. I'm not going to hit submit because I did this testing it out a couple days ago, and I pretty much immediately got a response from support. So I don't want to bother the support guys, but yeah, I want to say within 30 minutes, I had someone emailing me back, hey, what's the problem? Let's jump on the phone. Let's get this resolved. So I really like that the ability to create the ticket is right here, and it's that simple. Now we scroll up. This is also where you would create your support tunnel. So if they respond back and they say, hey, can you open a support tunnel? Basically, that means they want to be able to look at the appliance and see what's going on, help you troubleshoot it, grab some logs. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You, right here, can go ahead and grab all those logs for them and send those logs over to them. So you just grab the log, download it, and send it to the support engineer, and then they'd be able to help you fix whatever's going on with that machine. Now, my last one is one of those where I'm kind of curious to know if anyone's used this before, if anyone's seen this before. It's been in the product for a while. We've added some new stuff to it, which is exciting. But we come up here to help. Not only can we get the release notes and online support and documentation, but we can click this box that says Show Advanced. Now, when we click Show Advanced, we now get a Diagnostics tab. We can actually go out and look at all the stuff that's going on in this machine. So this is definitely one of those things that you probably want to have support engaged before you jump into. However, when we enable that, we also get advanced backup settings. So now we can come in here and we can change things. Now, again, this is one of those, whenever you go into advanced mode, you want to know what you're doing, but this top one's pretty simple. How many concurrent jobs can we run? Well, if we're running 10 gigabit Ethernet and we know our environment can handle it, then we can try turning that number up or down and making some changes there. Now, for the rest of these things, I'd definitely make sure that we've got, one of the architects involved, or we've got support involved to make sure that we're not, changing something that might brick the environment. But we do give you the control to get in there and be able to do those things. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the ability to go over and go to seeding. Now we can seed data. So here you could hook up a device to the machine, hit find device, prepare device, seed data, eject device, and then you ship it off to us and we can load that. So you don't have to replicate that initial data set to the cloud. Now with that being said, seeding is only useful if you're replicating to the cloud. So we've actually made it so that if there isn't a cloud replication configured, you're not going to see seeding. So if you ever get in here and you're like, oh, I need to seed this device, and you can't find seeding, well, that's because you probably don't have replication set up. So you want to set replication up first, and then you're going to be able to seed a device for that replication. Now, with that being said, I do see that there are some stuff hanging out in the chat. Let me go ahead and jump back over to the chat and see if I can answer those questions. One of the questions I got, and I'm the technical guy, so this is not a question for me, but is with the change to the way that we're doing ICAB and we're going to that consumption model, was there a price change? And I'm going to say, I think the answer is yes, but I don't want to commit to that because I am the technical guy. So absolutely, reach out to your salesperson. They're going to know how that change happened. Again, I showed you how to log into the dashboard and see exactly how much you're using. So if you have more licenses than you were using, then I believe you're going to save some money there. But if you were using a lot more than you were paying for, then go ahead and log into the dashboard and just see exactly how much that you guys are actually using. All right, we've got another question. Will the appliances automatically update, and can you set them that way? No, unfortunately, well, I guess not unfortunately. By design, they're not going to automatically update. There is a checkbox, so let's go ahead and go back to the web with me here, and we'll look at our firmware update. There is a checkbox to automatically download the updates. So I do leave that on. It's going to automatically download it. That way when I'm ready, I can just hit install. Install is going to run through and do a little install process. And then there's going to be a button, reboot. You click reboot, and it's going to go ahead and reboot it. And again, it's going to install it and reboot the one in the cloud also if you're set up for replicating. Now, if you go to the dashboard, and I tell it here that I want to update the primary appliance, it's going to actually do the install, do the reboot automatically. So I don't have to click multiple buttons. It's only when you're actually updating it from the appliance that you have to click on a couple of different buttons. All right, well, I'm waiting for the next question to come in. I do want to remind everyone to go out to the YouTube. I'm so over 40 at this point. Go out to youtube.com, and if you search for Infrascale or you click on the link that's in the chat, that's going to take you directly to our page. And go ahead and subscribe to that. We're putting out Tech Thursdays, so there's going to be a bi-weekly event where we're going to bring in different guests. We've already had the implementation team, support. We're going to have our chief product officer. We're going to have the CEO. We're going to have tons of guests around Infrascale. we have all kinds of different topics as far as deploying the virtual appliance. If you didn't know we had a virtual appliance, there's a complete walkthrough of deploying a virtual appliance in there. So we've got lots of different options out there, and we also have tech tips. So say you wanted to see how to configure different options within the product. Those are all going in the tech tips channel. And then we also have, you know, the standard marketing stuff that we have available. And we also are participating in many different tech industry events. And we're reposting those videos up in that area. So our YouTube definitely has the latest and greatest information about what's going on. So I would definitely subscribe to that. That way you can stay in the know. I know when I'm in the field, nothing upsets me more than to go to a customer site and the customer's like, hey, I'm running the new version of that software. And you're like, there's a new version of the software. Like so it's great to be able to stay on the forefront and know that you're not going to walk into one of those situations that might become a little awkward where you're not the expert in the situation. I did just get another question. So after I did the 8.0 upgrade, my DR image is set to auto. What does that mean? Is it going to use the standard engine? So unfortunately, I was against this, but the standard engine got renamed. The old standard engine is now the legacy, and the old Ignite is now called standard. So auto is going to actually use the latest and greatest. So auto would use the new standard, which is the Infrascale backup engine. So you should see stability improvements, performance improvements, a lot of stuff going on there. And, you know, our 8.0, actually, that's one thing we forgot to talk to Alexey about. So shame on me. We are changing our release schedule. So we will be releasing new firmwares on what's roughly a 6-week schedule. So 8.1 will be coming out in about a month and some change. And that will have some more updates. And, you know, that's just going to keep going along. So every 6 weeks, you can expect fixes and updates to all the different pieces and components to all of the different Infrascale products. So not only just the DRAS appliance, but also to the direct-to-cloud appliance and to the cloud application backup. Now we have gotten almost to the end of the hour. I don't see any more questions right now. So with that being said, I do again want to remind you guys to go ahead and go out, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, you know, all the different social medias, YouTube. I'd like to thank Alexey T for being our special guest. I know that it was a little after his work hours today for him to join us. So I'm super happy that he was able to stay up late and join us for that call. Oh, thank you, Kelly, for posting out the different things. Nope, apparently my dog is also thanking Kelly. So she put in the LinkedIn and the YouTube. So Ryan has an interesting question. So do you suggest removing the Hyper-V clients in the Hyper-V tab and moving them over to regular clients? So as long as you have an appliance that is pre-last month, then you can continue to use it as you've always done it. The only change going forward is going to be temporarily. If you're going to be backing up Hyper-V, we are going to install the agent. Now, traditionally, a lot of people have liked to install the agent just because, you know, with VMware, they have change block tracking. They've got a really well-established set of APIs and integrations. Not so much on the Hyper-V side. Microsoft's working on it, and they're getting better. 2019 is way better than 2016. 2016 is way better than 2012. I mean, they added nested virtualization. They added a bunch of stuff. But it's really up to you. You know, using the agent, I think, is going to be better than using Hyper-V's backup methods still for now. But you know, as long as you've had an appliance, then you still have access to being able to do the Hyper-V single install on the Hyper-V server, back up all the guest integration. It's only for people who are getting the appliances now for probably the next 3 to 6 months, where they're going to need to use an agent-based solution to back those virtual machines up. But if anyone has any questions around that, they can always reach out to your sales rep or me, and we can go way more in depth into that. If anyone wants a personalized demo or conversation around any of these things, definitely reach out to us. We're more than happy to jump on with you, do partner training, customer training, anything like that. So feel free to reach out. If you don't know who your rep is, there's an 800 number on our main website, infrascale.com, where they can help get you in touch with whoever's the rep that would actually be covering you, so you can get that one-on-one experience that makes everything a little bit better. With that being said, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thanks a lot, guys, for attending, and hopefully I'll see you in a couple weeks for the next Tech Thursday.
Great job, Chris. Thanks.